Hey guys, how are you doing? We have a special video topic today. I want to talk about the things that I wish I knew before I got married. Now, before I dive into that, let's clear the water a little bit because there are things that I think most people know that will affect you after you get married, and we'll briefly talk about those. And I also want to say that just because I wish I knew these things before I got married doesn't mean that my decision would have changed at all. I'll tell you exactly how I think each of these things affected my marriage and what would have been different if I had known them before I got married. But really the purpose of this video is just to provide you with my experience, having just passed my 4-year anniversary with my wife. I want to share with you the things that I learned and the things that I think you should talk about with your partner and think about for yourself and your own future before you decide to tie the knot. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. I'm always posting things related to self-development, whether it's relationships, fitness, entrepreneurship, mindset. It's all here on this channel, so if you enjoy these kinds of conversations, you're going to love the rest of my content. I appreciate each and every one of you who subscribes, but let's dive into things. Now, I was married when I was 22 years old. I have been dating my wife since I was 17, and I've known her since I was about 4 years old. So we have a history. We go back quite a ways, but we didn't really start connecting as friends, like serious friends, until probably middle school. And yeah, throughout high school, we were really good friends. We hung out a lot, and junior year was when we started actually dating. I proposed to her in college in 2013, so that means I was 20. So I was 20 years old when I proposed, and yeah, so everything's kind of moved at a steady pace for us. We didn't really take things too fast, but it's not because we didn't want to. We were talking about getting married months after we started dating. My wife and I both have personality types where we are fiercely loyal to the people we love. That includes friends and family, and of course our significant other and our children. So it's just kind of who we are. We commit very deeply. We're very, very loyal, and we choose the people we keep close very carefully. So it was an easy decision for the two of us once we got to know each other at a deep enough level. We just kind of knew that things would work because we trust each other 100%. And that kind of brings me to the initial things that I think most of you watching have probably considered for yourselves, and I think the things that most people know, the things that I knew when I got married, and there are just some basic ground rules that we should talk about first. And the first thing is trust, obviously. If you still do not trust your partner 100%, that's a problem, and you really, really need to think deeply about that before you get married. Now, there's a reason why so many people today get divorced, right? And there's many reasons, and a lot of them are very nuanced. So, you know, take what I say with a grain of salt. But I think the root of a lot of the problems in today's marriages are just trust. People don't trust each other. And if you're going to spend your life with someone, you're going to share your bank account, you're going to have kids with these people, you're going to live in the same house, you have to trust this person 100%. And they have to trust you. So if your partner has reservations about you, and there are things that frustrate you about their level of trust, then that discussion needs to happen before you do this. And what I mean by trust, I mean trust as a whole, right? I'm talking about deep, important things, and I'm talking about shallow things too, right? So if you ask your partner to, like, take out the trash, or, hey, you know, be home by 9 so that you can spend some time with me, and they don't do those things, then, like, there's a trust problem there, right? Because if you're asking them to do things and they're not following through, that's a problem, and that's a reason not to trust them. Granted, those are petty reasons, and those are things that can easily be talked about, and you can find compromises, but that can indicate that there could potentially be problems with deeper things later on in life, and these are the type of problems that cause rifts in a relationship and can eventually lead to divorce. If you don't think your partner is capable of picking your kids up from school, for example, or if your partner drinks too much, or does things that are not healthy and not good for them, and you've talked about it 100 times, but they still do it behind your back, that's a huge problem, and it needs to be fixed. Something really important that I've come to notice in my relationship with my wife this year is our ability to hold each other accountable. And this is something that requires a lot of trust, right? I did a 10-day detox not that long ago, and part of the detox was to completely stop consuming caffeine, and I needed my wife's help with that. So I told her, hey, I don't want to take caffeine anymore for the next 2 weeks. I'm really going to need your help with this because I'm dependent upon it. And for the next 3 days, I'm going to be really tired and I'm really going to want it. So I want you to take all the pre-workout and the coffee, and I want you to hide it from me and don't give it to me. So she did it. And yeah, 2 days later, 3 days later, I was asking her. I was trying to make an excuse for myself. I was like, look, I'm really tired. I need to get this done. I'm not going to be able to get it done if I don't have caffeine. Can you just give it to me? And she didn't. She kept it hidden. I went 10 days without it, and I felt great at the end, all because I trusted her to do that. And I told her I'd be sweet-talking her, and I'd be trying to convince her to give me caffeine, like a drug addict, right? And I told her, be prepared for that, and don't let me down. And she didn't. So that's just one example of how trust can play an integral part of self-development in your relationship. And, I think the goal of a good, healthy relationship is to support each other with your goals, with your self-development. And if you want to improve your life, if you want to get healthy, if you want to get fit, if you want to be happier and accomplish things, you need a partner who can support you in doing that. And trust is a huge component. And this kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which is goals, right? Because everyone has goals. Some people just aren't really aware of them. They don't think of them as goals. Other people don't really write them down. So, it's not something that's at the forefront of their mind, but they have dreams, right? And goals are just dreams with a deadline. So whether you're a dreamer or a goal setter, that doesn't really matter. I would encourage you to be a goal setter and write these things down. But eventually, you're going to reach certain points in your life where you start wanting more. You're going to start asking for more. You're going to say, I'm almost 30, I should get in shape. Or I'm almost 50 and I hate my job, I should quit and start a business. There's going to be all kinds of things that you can't really predict unless you're a meticulous goal setter who's very self-aware and in touch with your values. Good for you if you are. If you're not, watch some of my other videos. We can help you fix that. But no matter what, you're going to encounter these things, and life is going to change. Things are going to come up and challenge you. And you have to have a partner that supports you in your goals and also has a vision of the future that is aligned with your goals, right? Because you're two separate people. Two separate people. With your own ideas, your own goals, your own personalities, your own fears, your own desires, right? All of these things. You have different belief systems. Now, I'm not saying that you should try to be as identical as possible to your partner because I don't really think that matters, to be honest. I am a stark contrast to my wife. She's incredibly introverted. She keeps to herself mostly. I'm very extroverted. I'm very loud. I prefer to be in crowds, right? There are a lot of differences between us. But the thing that is the same between us, the thing that is the most similar, and this is what I think is important, are our values. Our values are the same. The most important thing to both of us is our family, our children. We really wanted more than anything to be parents. I wanted to be a dad, she wanted to be a mom, and we kind of established that right away, and we knew that synchronization between those two values, between us, was going to be something that held us together, the glue in our relationship, if you will. And in times of need and in times of great challenge and struggle, we could rely upon that shared value to give us strength, right? When things are difficult, we have our children, we have our parenting, and that's something that really brings us together. Another thing that we share in common is a growth mindset. We are both very, very driven to constantly improve our lives. And our relationship didn't start out like this. I kind of had to work with her a little bit in the beginning because when we first started dating, I was really into self-development, but I was doing it wrong. And it wasn't until I actually discovered how to do it correctly and started sharing that with her, did she decide to join me and actually get excited about it too. And that became a shared value that grew not outside of us, but within us together, right? We worked on establishing that value together, which made it extra special because this has been an integral part of our journey as a couple, so that, like self-development and setting goals together. I'm really into fitness, and just last year I spent the whole year powerlifting, trying to get into the 1,000 pound club, and she helped me out a ton by making sure I was getting enough protein. She would criticize me on days when I wanted to skip a workout, and she always held me accountable. And on the day when I finally got into the 1,000 pound club, I did a 300 pound squat. She gave me this necklace, and she had bought it months ago because she knew I was going to complete my goal. and she wanted to make it special for me. So this is a really, really special necklace to me. And that just goes to show how much she supports me in pursuing my goals, and I support her in pursuing her goals. And that is absolutely critical. You have to have trust to be able to do that, but you also have to have goals, and your goals have to line up. If she wanted to have a big family and have lots of kids and settle down and buy a home, but I wanted to travel, those are goals that conflict, and that's a recipe for disaster. There are certain core values within a relationship that both people need to agree on. And you have to make sure that the future you're forecasting, the vision you have for your future, is congruent with your values as a couple, as individuals, and that the things you're going to work on are going to support each other and move the relationship and the family forward together. Because if either of you have a really important goal or a really important value that is in any way going to hinder progress as a couple, that's a recipe for divorce, for breakup, for serious problems in the future. So you need to have a conversation with your partner about your goals and your values. And I think that, I'm hoping that those are two things that most people are aware of. Those are things that I was aware of when I went into marriage, and I knew that those things checked out for us, right? Those boxes were checked before we got married, and I knew that ultimately the problems we encountered involving trust and goals would be very small and easily resolvable because our core values were in alignment. Now let's talk about the things that I wish I knew, that I didn't know before I got married. And if I could go back in time, I mean, honestly, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't change anything because that would be like the butterfly effect. Who knows what could go wrong? But if I could talk to myself from a different dimension and say, hey, before you get married, you should think about these things, here's what I would say. And these things wouldn't change any of my decisions. I would not change anything about my marriage. I would not change anything about my family. Everything has happened the way it has happened for me for a reason, and I'm happy with that. But if I had known these things back then, my self-development, my entrepreneurial journey, my fitness journey, my parenting journey, all of these things would have gone a little bit smoother, and I think I could have made progress a little bit faster if I knew these things. The first thing is that your partner will begin to mirror you, and you will begin to mirror your partner, and in many more ways than just one. So I want you to think about the person that you want to marry, right? Or if you aren't in a relationship, just think about your dream person. Try to think about some of their behaviors, some of the things that they say frequently, the little quirks, the weird things that they do, some of their habits, right? Like, how early do they wake up? Do they watch TV before bed? Do they complain a lot? Do they say things like, oh, this always happens to me? You know, what's their sense of humor like? What kind of things do they laugh at? Because all of these things will rub off on you, and you will start to act more like your partner. Believe it or not, like, it's 100% true. Now, some of you may have the advantage of living with your partner right now. Maybe you're living with them and you're not married yet. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do that, but this is going to give you an advantage that I didn't have because I didn't live with my wife until we were married. And so I wasn't really aware of some of the weird things that she did, and she wasn't aware of some of the weird things that I did. And it wasn't until a couple years after getting married that we started to realize, oh my gosh, I'm acting a lot more like you, and you're acting like me. This is kind of bizarre. For example, like I said, my wife is very, very introverted. She doesn't like loud parties. She doesn't like being in crowds. She'd rather read a book than go out. And I was the exact opposite. But now I can comfortably say that I am more introverted than I was 2 years ago, probably 20 to 30% more. There are days when I dread going to a party, when I dread hanging out with people. I'd rather just be at home and read, and I actually find a lot of comfort in solitude. Now, granted, that's not really a bad thing. It's kind of a good thing, actually, because I'm able to be more comfortable by myself. And my wife is more comfortable with people now. She's made a lot more friends. She's kind of adopted my group of friends. And I think she's a lot more sociable than she was. So that was a good blending of character traits. There are also some weird things that we've done to each other, though, that haven't been as productive as that. For example, I was a night owl. I stayed up really, really late, and I would sleep in really, really late. I did that throughout my entire college experience, and my wife started doing that with me. Because if I'm up and I'm watching TV and it's late at night, she's going to stay up and watch TV with me. She's not going to want to go to bed. And for the first couple years of our marriage, our sleep schedule was terrible. I mean, it was an identical copy of my sleep schedule from college, which had no routine, no rhythm whatsoever. I mean, our circadian rhythms were non-existent at that point. And, it became a problem because we had to wake up early for school. We had to wake up for work, to go to our jobs when we had jobs back then. What a joy. But these things became problems because the different aspects of our lives kind of started to collide in ways that we hadn't really predicted. Her sense of humor got as weird as mine is, and I started saying like weird little cutesy things that normally only a woman would say to like her dog or her cat. I started saying those things. So just think really hard about the things that your partner does, the behaviors, the habits, the little nuances, because those things will start to rub off on you. And just make sure that you're okay with a little bit of that, because it's going to happen. Jim Rohn said you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And in a marriage, you're the average of the 1 person you spend the most time with, and that's going to be your spouse. Another thing that I really wish I had put more thought into was just my overall expectations from the marriage. Before I got married, I was really excited to be with my best friend, the person I loved, and spend more time with her, and eventually start a family and just kind of explore the world with her. And I think that's the image and the dream that most people have about getting married. But there are other little things, little expectations that I think a lot of people don't give thought to. Probably because they're just not as important, but they will be realities that you have to eventually confront with this person. So, for example, like holidays, right? If your family has a Christmas party, but your partner's family also has a Christmas party, like which one are you going to go to? Which family are you going to eat Thanksgiving dinner with? Which family are you going to go trick-or-treating with? Which family are you going to spend Christmas morning with? Are you going to have Christmas morning at your house with your children? Or are you going to go to your in-laws? Or are you going to go to your parents' house? Like these are little situations that, you got to figure out, and they're kind of important. When your wife gives birth, are your parents going to be in the room with you while she's giving birth or not? Like, do you want that? Does she want that? Is there going to be a conflict there? And there are other things that are, a little more petty, but still things that are worth talking about. And I think you should establish with your partner what you value the most, and like truly identify what matters to you and what matters to them, so that you can give each other leverage in making these decisions. Because if you leave decisions at 50-50 in every single circumstance, you're going to run into situations where neither of you can make a decision. Especially if you disagree, you're not going to be able to resolve it. So like figure out who should be in charge of what, right? If you don't really care what the house looks like, then leave your wife in charge of choosing carpet and wallpaper and furniture. And if your wife doesn't really care about the family car, then you be in charge of that, right? As long as it fits car seats, then you pick it, right? Or going out to dinner, who's the picky eater? Make them in charge of choosing where you eat. There are basic little things like this that if you don't set expectations for, they will drain your willpower, and they will severely impact your ability to make decisions as a couple. Every time you guys hit a roadblock and you can't make a decision together, it's going to impede your overall ability to move forward in your life. So I would encourage you to sit down and talk about your expectations, talk about the conditions of the relationship, and establish areas of control for each partner. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who are super egalitarian, super liberal, and they think that everything should be completely equal, like 50-50, complete equality of outcome. And if that's how you want to do it, that's fine. I have no quarrel with you. But I will tell you right now, it's difficult, and it's not necessarily the most efficient way to do things. Is it the most ethical way? I don't know. But I'm here to tell you that if my wife and I did not divide labor, our lives would be way harder than they are. I run the business. I make the money. My wife does most of the work with the children, right? She wants it that way. I want it this way. We agree on that, and it works. And it might be different for you guys, but I encourage you to think about what types of things you should be expecting as a couple, what types of decisions you should make where you might conflict, and try to delegate certain things out, because that's what makes a relationship really successful. It's the ability to delegate and kind of divide labor up and your strengths should uphold your partner's weaknesses, and vice versa. You should complement each other. So think really hard about that, and just try to avoid senseless conflict as much as possible. But other than that, I can't really think of anything major that I would like to add to this video. I think I covered the most basics, right? If you can get these things down, you have a very solid foundation for a healthy marriage. And I think you guys will do a great job growing together if you can talk about these things openly and be honest with each other. But you let me know down in the comments what you think are the most important things for a relationship, for people who want to get married. Let me know what your story is, right? If you've been married, what are some things that you and your spouse struggled with the most? What are some things that you wish you knew differently? Or if you disagree with me, let me know. I'd love to read your comments and respond. I'm always all about learning and fostering healthy discussions about these things. So if you like this video and if you want more tips and information and videos on self-development involving fitness, relationships, finance, family, mindset, all of the big important things, it's all on this channel. I post videos regularly. I've got a new podcast coming out you guys are going to love. So please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, and we will see you guys in the next video. Take care.